6, 9, and 11, they're asking if it's valid or not. So before we can actually do anything, I'm just opening it up in Fitch. I'm not saying it's actually valid. I have it up here to show you guys. We have to evaluate whether or not the conclusion follows. If we do a Fitch proof and it turns out it's invalid, we'll never succeed, ever. It's not gold or whatever. Alright, so who's up to bat? No one wants to play around.
I think it was my turn.
It's your turn? Sure, okay, let's good. You want to play? Great. Alright, so the question is this valid or not? What's the definition of validity? The first one. You guys gotta know this for the test, by the way. Well, that's much later.
If the premises is true,
True, then the conclusion
must be.
must be true, right? What's the second definition of validity, Maria? It is if
It is impossible
for the premises to be
premises to be true
and the conclusion
to be false.
false. Because the idea is if you're forced to conclusion, it can't be
Yeah.
false, right? It's impossible.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's think about that. Another way of asking the same question is it possible for 1 and 2 to be true and 3 false? Rachel, that's the same way of saying, is it possible for 1 and 2 to be true and that when I remove the not to be? The opposite of when I take away the not, it changes it from false to. So another way of asking the same question, is it possible for 1 and 2 to be true and 3 false? Is if I take away the not, is it possible for 1 and 2 to be true and 3 true, right? I just took away the not. Same question, I just took away the not. Okay? So let's think about it. What does 1 say? B is a cube, and what does 3 say? C is a cube, but what does 2 say, Cody? Not the case that? And B is a cube. You can't have them both together, right? And 1 and 3 say C is a cube and B is a cube. Can I have all 3 together true?
Yes.
You sure?
No.
No, but B is a cube and C is a cube. And 2 says, right? Put 3 and 2 together. C is a cube and B is a cube, right?
Yeah.
What does 2 say? They can't have both. So can I have 1, 2, and 3 true together?
Oh, I don't know.
There you go. I cannot, right? So it's impossible. That's the same way as saying I cannot have, it's impossible for 1 and 2 to be true and 3 to be true, which is the same as saying it's impossible for 1 and 2 to be true and that to be false, which is saying that the argument is valid. Who gets that? Oh, good. Who kind of gets that? Who's like, what the? Okay. Somewhere can't even raise your hand. You're like, what the? All right. Okay, fine. It's valid. If you didn't get that, that's fine. Let's do this. How do I do it? Okay, so question, what goes on in your mind anytime you solve proofs? Aaron? Anytime you do proofs, what do you go through? The sequence, there you go. Ding! Which is?
What?
No.
So wait, it's invalid? It's false?
It's valid.
It's valid.
Yeah. Because
Because
it was
it's
not.
not-
Because it has the not.
Okay, I can do it another way if you want. Let's actually think it through one other way. If that didn't make sense. You remember the De Morgan's transformation? If I say neither nor, that's the same as not this and not that, right? Whereas not both the Yankees and the Red Sox win the World Series. It's saying not this or not that, right? So if I 2 is equivalent to not cube C or not cube B, but what does 1 say? So what remains? Not cube C.
So it has to be not.
Yeah.
It has to be not cube C. That's the easy way to make
I
it.
got that now.
You got that one down? Okay, good.
Just when you've got your main connector on the
Oh, man.
outside, whatever's within the parentheses, that main connector applies to everything in the parentheticals.
Yes.
Yeah.
In this case, yeah, if you do the De Morgan's. All right, so Aaron, what do you try first? Ding! Orlin. Can you use Orlin? In order to use it, what does it say? You need a only above as the, you see or above as the main connective? Nope. So Orlin is out. Your number 1 try, gone. So what's the next strategy, Ben?
Backward method.
Good. Step 1 says?
Look at where your pointer's at.
And?
And then identify the main connection.
So where are you looking?
Am I above?
No, where's your pointer at? Right there, right? What's the main connective? Not. And then what do you guess, Rachel? Intro. What intro? Not intro. Anytime you guess a rule, what do you do? Everyone, flip the page. Turn to not intro. This is on page 2. At the very top. There are questions and answers here to write down. You guys ready?
Yeah.
So that space to the right, not intro. Make sure you're at the right place. Look on with your neighbors. Not intro. Q1. There's always 3 questions and answers. Q1. What do I need? Write this in your sheet. Q1. What do I need? Answer. One subproof. Q1, what do I need? Answer. One subproof. Okay, everyone got that? Q2, what goes at the top of the subproof? Q2, what goes at the top of the subproof? Answer. The opposite of what's at the bottom. Q2, what goes at the top of the subproof? Answer. The opposite of what's at the bottom. Anyone need that again? One more time. Q2, what goes at the top of the subproof? Answer. The opposite of what's at the bottom. And then Q3, what goes at the bottom of the subproof? Q3, what goes at the bottom of the subproof? Answer, contradiction. Might as well launch into this now. We're making decent time. We're gonna probably just make it. I might hold you over for a couple minutes.
Wait,
So Q3, sorry, did I say Q2? Q3, what goes at the bottom of the subproof? Answer, contradiction. These questions and answers. Remember we talked last time about the whole notion of chorus? I asked a question, and the idea of a chorus in ancient Greece was there's a play going on. They actually interact with the audience. You guys might have seen that if you went to plays in New York, right? They actually ask a question, a query to the audience. The audience responds back. But this is the mode of operation for things in general, not just plays and whatnot, but education. The instructor, whoever it is, they ask a certain question, the audience engages, they answer back, and there's this back and forth of question and answer, or dialogue, whatever it might be called. Fancy word for this back in the day was dialectic. Has anyone heard of this?
Yes.
Yeah, oh good. Dialectic is a fancy notion that it's got a lot of versions. If any of you go on to study political philosophy, there's Marxism and dialectics, it's in Hegel, it's all over the place. You guys have gotten versions of this probably in high school. They've changed it over time. One is pro, and then con, and then what do you do with that? You form a
Consensus.
you put them together to find a balance, as it were, right? You look at both sides of the issue. The older version of older language, stemming from Hegel, was you have a thesis. What's the opposite? Opposite of a thesis. Antithesis, right? And then you have a synthesis. Yeah, fancy words. Synthesis, you put them together. This stuff is still, even though it's theoretical and it's got a lot of applications in spite of its theoretical nature, it's actually still put in practice in law school. If you're thinking about doing that, I know some of you said that you might. It's called the Socratic method. The Socratic method in law schools is basically you ask a question, and that's all dialectic is, by the way. It's the not just asking a question and answering, but the art of learning how to ask the right questions, which then elicit certain kinds of answers. Those answers, if intelligent, raise further questions. Those questions raise further answers, and you get this sort of cycle of conversation, real dialogue, real conversation. That's what dialectic's about, okay? So the Socratic method in law school, it's basically, if you ask the right kind of question in an artful way, it will elicit a certain kind of answers. Very often this is what's called rhetoric. Rhetoric is basically logic applied to persuasive purposes. We'll talk about that later in the course. You've never heard that terminology before. But the idea of what true dialectic, Socratic method, is you ask the right kinds of questions and it produces the right kinds of answers, and you go back and forth. In law school, unfortunately, this becomes ask the kind of question that gets you sort of in the winning mode, forcing the other person to answer a certain way because they don't know any better, and then they answer a certain way, you got them. You're trying to corner them into a game. Whereas true dialectic is not a game. It's about exploring together in conversation. Kind of make sense? Mm-hmm. So this whole notion of the chorus, when I talk about that, what I'm doing here, this was logic embodied back in the day. They didn't have computers. They didn't even write this down. This is all carried with them. These are like forms of thought within them. So they ask a certain question. What do? I'm doing it here in a modern setting, but you can think of it like that. Ding, I tried OR-lim. Can you use OR-lim? No. Why? Because blah, blah, blah. This is kind of a conversation. The idea is they would apply this is the structure logic, but they would apply this to everyday type situations going beyond just logic. Whether it's political debates, whether it's, hey, should we do this other thing here? Should we invade that other country? They provide arguments and go back and forth. Okay, so let's just do this now. You'll see what I mean when I put this into action. So, who took the bat again? Ben. No, you went?
No, it's like you're.
Okay, Ben, so I go for not intro. What happens anytime you choose non-intro? You?
Flip the page.
And what does it say? Q1.
What do I need?
Answer.
One subgroup.
And this is basically dialectic. You're asking questions, you're providing answers, but it's an inner dialogue. I'm doing it with you guys, but at home it'll be an inner dialogue. One subproof, and then Rachel, Q2. The answer is? And what's at the bottom here? Not cube C. In the sheet, it's actually not P, right? And at the top of the subgroup, if you look at the sheet, it's P, right? So in this case, it's not cube C, so the opposite of that is? So I put in cube C, and then Q3, Alexia? Not intro.
Yeah, oh, okay. What goes at the bottom of
Answer? And this thing, everyone up here, that symbol right there is the contradiction symbol. And then I go back down, Alexia, and how do I get this to check out? What's highlighted or boxed? Look at your sheet. What's the whole thing that's boxed is the whole, all P, all, yeah, the subproof. So in this case, it's 3 through 5. I just click up there and I get that. I get the check. Anytime you get the check, what happens, Rita? Move up and then I reset. Ding! So everyone back to the first page. I should hear this thing moving. And then Q1. Oh, sorry, not Q1. Ding! OR-lim, is that an option? No, because there's no or above as the main connective, right? So that's out. So then Jonathan, you're on to? Ding ding! Good backwards method. Step 1 says? You look at where your pointer's at. And okay, this thing right here is actually, this is a kind of, even though strictly speaking it's not a connective, they have a rule for it, so this is a kind of connective. Read step 2, it says yes. No, yes, before you do that, yes. So I gotta go intro what? That sign, that contradiction, right? That's why this is kind of like a connective. So everyone flip to contradiction intro. I'm gonna have some stuff for you to write down. So we're doing the flipping. Next to the contradiction intro on the sheet right there, where I got my finger. Everyone good? Write the following. You guys ready? Okay. Look for the not sentence above. And guess its opposite. So again, look for the not sentence above. And guess its opposite. By contradiction intro, yeah? So, Joshua, what's my only not sentence above? Number, good. What's the opposite of that? Just take away the not, right?
Yeah.
So cube C and cube B. If you look in the sheet, it has P and not P, right? It's just P is any sentence whatsoever, and then not that. So cube C and cube B. I go back down, and how I finish that up, Joshua, how do I get it to check out? What's highlighted? Where's the contradiction? The two things that cannot be true together. The P and the not P. The P and the not P.
Oh, yeah. So the QD.
Yeah, numbers.
Numbers 1 and 2.
No,
Or 1
no. 4 and. What's the very opposite of 4? 2, yeah, those two things can't be true together. So 4 is your P, and 2 is not P. You verify it, you're good. Okay, I'm done calling you guys. Let's do this together. This is the choral idea. So let's try to reason together. Spit it out, even if you can't fake it until you make it. That's the idea. So if you're not getting it, or if not, you don't want to participate, you have to participate. Spit something out. We good? Here we go. So what happens anytime I move the pointer?
You reset.
And then? Ding! Everyone, what's ding?
Use
Everyone. So even if you're not getting, just go. Say something. Move the mouth.
Or live.
Or live. Say it. That's good. Or live. And why can I use or live?
No.
No. Why? Everyone.
Because you need an or.
You need an
Because you need an or
What's
where?
your main connector?
Where?
Above or to
Above,
the
and I have 3, 2, and 1 above, and no or, right?
No.
Yes. So then you go on to
Step two.
Ding,
backwards
ding,
method.
which is?
Backwards method.
backwards method. Everyone. What's step 1 say?
Look
Look at where your pointer's at.
And where's my pointer at?
Or.
4. And identify the main connective. Again, you move your mouth. This is what I meant when I said logic is not a spectator sport. If you just fake it a little bit, little by little it starts to ingrain in your brain. This is a different mode of learning than what you guys get in class, not classical education, but your standard education, which is, by the way, a false education. And you haven't realized that by now. This is where philosophy comes into play. We question stuff that shouldn't be questioned. This goes all the way back to the beginning. It's also the roots for where true education, what it's supposed to be, is about. Yeah. So learning to question intelligently is part of what true education is about. So let's do this together. You fake it until you make it. You move your mouth, and little by little it starts seeping in. You got to do though. So again, what am I trying?
Yes. Oh.
2.
Ding ding. So I go 1. The main connective is and then step 2 says
Just intro.
yes. Intro. What intro?
Intro and.
Intro and what happens anytime you guess a rule?
Verify
You
it.
verify it. You flip the page. Everyone start turning it. I should hear some action going on. There you go. What does and intro say?
You need the ingredients.
You need the ingredients above. What are my ingredients? Cube C is one ingredient.
QB.
Do you see them? Sometimes you have to etch it in. Sometimes you're lucky it's already there. Do you see them above?
No, we have to put it in.
Take a look. Careful.
Oh, it's there, but it's
I
not.
have good. I have one ingredient there. And where's the other ingredient?
One.
In 1. So they're already given to me, right? And that's it. Welcome to the next proof. By the way, what I didn't do for 6.5 and 6.9 is go top down. I'm gonna do that after you guys take pictures of this because it actually makes more sense once we've gone through all this to go top down. We have about 5 minutes left. We're just gonna make it. I think. You're gonna save this as 6.9. The whole thing with the wipe on, wipe off, I'll save that for next time, like how to take it, an analogy. Anyone still taking pictures? We good? Oh, okay. All right, let's do 6.9 since we just did it. It's fresh in your minds. Let's go top down. I want to prove that not cube C follows from 1 and 2, right? So the logic of this says, let's assume the opposite. Just like my client did not commit the murder, suppose he did. So devil's advocate, right? Suppose C were a cube. But then what does 1 tell me, everyone?
Yeah,
B is a cube, so putting them together I get C is a cube and B is a cube. But what does 2 say?
C and B are
You
not
can't
cubes.
have them together, right? So that's a,
Contradiction.
in which case your assumption C is a cube is,
Incorrect.
and that's it.
So is that how you always solve for not?
Not always, but in this case, yeah, it'll vary. Good. Does that kind of make sense? Kind of. Where's the hands? No, I didn't say yes, I said kind of. Okay, kind of is good. Let's do 6.5 now. Let's go top down real quick. Oh, won't let you do that. Top down should make a bit more sense. What is this thing showing overall? Okay, so you've got A and B or C, right? You got 2 options. I mean, you got A is true and B or C is true. So I break off the B or C. That leaves me options. Either Bill committed the murder or Charlie committed the murder, right? Or elim is basically saying explore each of those cases. So you don't know for sure if B committed the murder. You don't know for sure if C is true, right? You just know at least one, maybe both. So I say in the first subproof, it says suppose for the moment B is true. Well, what do I know from 1? That A already follows, right? And putting them together, I get A and B. And if I know A and B is true, I can say A and B or anything. Why? Because when is or true?
One side.
When you have one side true. So if A and B is true, then A and B or whatever is true, right?
Yeah.
Now let's try the other case. The other case was C. Suppose C is true. Well, I also know from 1 that
A is true.
A is true. So putting them together, I get A and C. And now if I know A and C is true, I can say A and C or whatever. And that's the same matching S. So whether B is in fact true or C is in fact true, which I don't know for sure, in either case, I get the same common denominator. This is your S. Kind of makes sense?
So one is true.
One is maybe true, but you don't know which
Another
one.
might be
So independently of whether one's in fact true or the other's in fact true, you know safely that this one has to still follow.
Okay.
That's the idea, yeah.
Is there like a system, like how you to do top down?
No, because, you can try top down,
Yes,
there's no
right.
system for that. Top down becomes an art, and I say that for the last, because that's actually the hardest step. It's the one that makes the most sense. The problem with going top down is if you don't get it, it falls apart quickly. It depends upon meaning. So I'm gonna say that later on we'll get back to proofs and we start making the dry run to the final, to the midterm. We good?